there. Good. Welcome, everyone, and welcome, Roy. So nice to have you here, and I want to introduce to all of you Roy Hodges. Is that correctly pronounced?
Yes.
Yes. And I want, we have just recently met, so I would consider Roy a very new friend of mine, and I enjoy speaking with him very much. I thought I have to take this opportunity to have a dialogue with him. And I would like to start off by asking you, Roy, to give us a little bit background of who you are and how did you get into Aikido, and how your life has also, I believe, progressed and been very interested in the spiritual part of life, if I call it that way.
Okay. Thank you, Bjorn. First off, thank you very much for responding to the initial message when I reached out to talk to you. So I really appreciate it. So I actually will tell a little bit about me, but in reverse. So how did I end up here is because before this, I worked in what I call secular life in business. And I did that to try to carry out a mission outside of a dojo. So for the last 10 years, I've been actually in secular life and in business and software and such. And I got to meet amazing people from all over the world. One gentleman in particular, his name is Rob Lohan, and Aaron Burnett. So they taught me a lot outside of the dojo. So, but before that, another decade was living in Aikido Shobokan Dojo. So I lived there. I was attendant to Sensei when he used to come to town for several weeks at a time.
Roy, you have to explain what dojo is this and who is the sensei?
Oh, it's a Saotome Sensei, Mitsugi Saotome Sensei. It's the headquarters dojo of Aikido Schools of Ueshiba. Now with the shrine is like the center of Aikido Schools of Ueshiba. But the DC dojo, he used to live there a very long period of time before he moved there from Florida. So I moved there right after he departed to go to Florida to have that be his main house in a cabin too. So we both, cabins are very aspired to in Aikido Schools of Ueshiba with some of the students around Sensei. It's very organic. That's what explains why this backdrop. But so yeah, I spent 10 years living at Shobokan Dojo, meditating, reading, studying, and of course, I didn't mention practicing. So we had classes all day.
Is this in Washington, D.C.?
Yes, it's in Washington, D.C. Yeah, it's great because there's a large international community in Washington, D.C., a lot of government, a lot of nonprofit organizations, World Bank, FBI. I mean, the list is endless. We used to have people from all walks of life, including other martial arts practitioners that used to stop by very frequently. Classes were huge when I first got there, huge. Rows and rows and rows of Yudansha. It was amazing.
Roy, could you maybe just give a very short, for us who's not that familiar with Saotome Sensei, about his history coming to America and teaching in America?
Oh yeah, sure. So Sensei has some great books on this subject. Shameless plug, I guess, but not so shameful. They're wonderful. So Sensei used to be also a deshi under O Sensei for about 15 years. He also trained and taught and instructed at, Homo Dojo. He also taught weapons there. It's pretty amazing. So he had a dream, a vision to come to the United States. O Sensei unfortunately passed away. It was a very traumatic time, very serious. So Sensei had a vision to come to the United States. And he actually went to Florida and Sarasota. And that's where he had opened a dojo with another student. And then after that dojo was opened, he actually opened his own dojo. And that's where he met Patty and all the friends that are around today. It's quite wonderful. Yeah.
Well, that was right after Osensei's death in 69, 70.
Yeah, somewhere after that. Yeah. I'm not an ASU historian, though I keep getting information from lots of different places, maybe for writing a book someday. Everybody keeps giving me information. It's quite funny.
Oh.
So before that, though, before living in the dojo, I had a, excuse me, I better turn that off. You might want to cut this. There's a heater over here that makes a racket. 1 second. So before moving to the DC dojo, I had a lot of opportunities to join the federal government in different capacities. And that was after a period of time in the United States Army. So I was in the service for about 4 years. And then between that interstitial period between getting out of the military and entering the dojo, I had some career opportunities that were quite a dream. Yeah, quite a dream. And I actually had an opportunity. I got a phone call to move to the DC dojo from a gentleman that lived there at the time. His name was Ivan Menjivar. And he's from El Salvador. He's quite a wonderful man. Looks like a samurai, no joke. Totally like stepping out of a Kurosawa movie, this gentleman. All deep voice, very gruff. And he called and he said, "Hey, can you come to the dojo and stay?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He says, we're leaving and we need somebody to take care of the dojo. Well, I would hope you would come." And then the rest is history. I actually moved there and was staying there, and it's never left for about a decade.
But Roy, where did you find out about Aikido? Before the army or?
Oh, that's a good question. So I was in the army at the time, and then I've already was really heavy in the Tao Te Ching and Lao Tzu and other philosophies, Asian, Western, whatever I can get my hands on. A lot of study, also meditation. And while I was doing sutta studies in Buddhism, I came across some quotes, and they were attributed to, at the time, I didn't say O Sensei. At the time, it was Morihei Ueshiba. And I was really wondering, oh, who is this person, going down the rabbit hole of research and study. And I came across more of his quotes, and I was greatly fascinated by what he was saying, because it meshed really well with some other things I was studying at the time. Also etymology, like the etymology in what O Sensei says means a lot to me, and it has a very powerful impact. So I was like, what is this Aikido thing? And then I looked for it. I was in Alaska at the time, in Fairbanks. You can imagine there's not much Aikido or martial arts in Fairbanks, Alaska. But I did find somebody on base, actually, in Fort Wainwright that had a small Aikido group. It was a children's class. I remember calling, and he goes, "Well, it's not really an adult class. So if you want to practice, you may be on your knees about 60 to 70% of the time." And that's how I started. The gentleman that taught, Derek Pinkerton, he very skilled martial artist in his own right. He went on to special forces, no surprise there. And he was very phenomenally fast. He was so fast. He could hit you 8 times. Like you just would see a blur, and it could hurt. It was pretty severe. Lots of ukemi, lots of, what do you call this? Koshinage. We did koshinage all the time. Oh my gosh, it was painful. And then the dojo on weekends wouldn't be heated in the morning because the thermostat was on an automatic timer. So on the weekends, it would be freezing when you got there, like -30 in the almost, but the school wouldn't be that cold, but it'd be that cold outside. But the school would be like 40 degrees, and you go in there practicing. So the mats would be super hard. So that's where I got a fondness for falling. So yeah, that's how in the army I came across Aikido.
Okay.
Also other martial arts too.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you had an interest in this Asian studies before, and is that that's something that I actually wanted to ask you about. I don't think we've spoken about that before, but I sometimes when I speak to people, and I kind of ask them a little bit, where did this interest, where did it come from? When was you first conscious of this interest? Usually we can find some really interesting stories. So not putting you on the spot, but do you recall that, like, when you consciously became aware that there was an interest towards these esoteric spiritual disciplines or philosophy?
Yes, that's a good question. So it's very clear. There's actually a sequence of events that happened. And again, I'll go in reverse because it's easier to talk about and remember that way. So I clearly remember coming across a quote from Basho when I was in high school. I was working I was doing part-time work for some spending money for computer stuff. It's not surprising I like computers. Not so much anymore, but I used to be really into them. Didn't have to see people face to face maybe. But I was working in a Hallmark store, which is a greeting card stationery business in the United States. And there was a book on the gift rack, and it was next to Life's Little Instruction Book, also another really good book. But it was a bunch of quotes, and on the back of the book, I remember dusting the shelf and pulling this book off, and I flipped it over and set it down, and it was dusting, and I went to go pick up the book. No kidding, this is exactly what happened. And on the back of the book, it says, "Do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the wise, semicolon, seek what they sought." And that has stuck with me to this very day and will stick probably for a long time, because that has so many different implications, really good in a Deshi relationship, to understand this quote very deeply. Do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the wise, seek what they saw. And it was like a bell being rung. Right when I read that, it was like, bam, like it's pow, and then put the book away. But it stayed with me for a long time. Now, it goes without saying that before that, there was already preconditioned for the bell and the striker, because before that, my childhood and young, teenager years, I was really big in the mythology, Greek mythology, and all the different characters and castes and roles in Greek mythology. And a book my mom had when I grew up was called Bullfinch's Mythology. It's very funny, and I have favorite stories in there. So I was always primed to be impacted by East-West culture. It doesn't matter to me. It's all philosophy, human philosophy. I think all human philosophy is very interesting. So I always had a predilection to that. Even when I can remember times, even when I was in elementary school, and being really impressionable. Also at the time, really bullheaded. Some things, if I'm like, no, that's not true, this isn't, no empirical evidence. So, and here I am studying philosophy. So funny. Yourself?
Yeah. Do you, when you look back, like to those really, really early days, and your sense of, yes, even before finding quotes and stuff, yes, your kind of conscious apprehension of your environment, the way how would you look at the world? How was the outlook? I mean, of course, we were young, we were children and all that, but did you feel that there was something in there that called out, that was calling, or in one way taking precedence in one way to the way you thought and the way you were thinking and considering things?
Well, that's also a very good question. I think that in psychology, there's a concept called the internal locus of control or external locus of control. It's a good concept because I think the question that you just asked actually touches on that, you know, because the response is going to be, the question was on, you know, what was your outlook, right? So I think that what's interesting is that I see both sides. I see an external calling and an internal impetus, and they meet, you know, together. You know, they meet almost like, you know, external, internal. Now science knows that this is not so true. The whole brain is active in creation, creativity versus logic. You know, not on the left side, right side. No, this is not so good. But you know, at the time, yes, it was good. I want to be be good on that. But at the time, I think, you know, looking back, and I've written about this quite profusely. At the time, I think that you know, I always appreciated uh, relations between things. I was always interested in the relationships between phenomena, whether it's internal, external, internal and external, and neither internal nor external to get on the four-way mousetrap in Buddhism. It's always very fascinating. Also proportion. I used to walk in fields, across fields, and I used to visualize me walking on the field from different perspectives. And I used to try to hold that perspective as long as I could. I used to do that.
That's lovely. That's fantastic. I love that. That's beautiful. With that kind of mind, how did you relate then to other people? Your relationships with family and no, I mean, yeah, of course we have a normal relationships, but did you find did you find that did you find it an interesting observation, as it were, what's happening between people? What is the engagement? What is the relationships? What are we engaging about, and how are we meeting, and how are we coming together?
I had a very difficult time growing up. You know, there's the bullying, which led to martial arts, actually. There was bullying. Obviously, there's different, you know, different sensibilities. I didn't relate to people. I was more receptive, more yin. I was more observing of what was going on. I really didn't engage. Now, I'm sure there's psychology that is at play for the lack of engagement, but at the same time, I was studying human behavior.
Yeah,
I remember quite clearly how people behaved with each other. And I want to emphasize that it's not a moral judgment. You know, the face is going to have expressions, or emotions are going to come to play. But behind the emotional state, there was always a continuous study of human behavior. I was always interested in human behavior and stimulus response and its relationship with the environment that's also changing, and the context and news. It's always been like that. But when I was young, even when I was living in the DC dojo, it was the students there will tell you, I really did not engage too much. Only with certain people. Only with certain people. And then it flipped like a switch one day. It really flipped like a switch.
Did you find that in your younger age that you had some people, maybe your parents, maybe your siblings, maybe someone that you, in a simple term, get along with, but that where you could express yourself and communicate with, where you felt there's no, I don't need to make an effort here to communicate. There's someone who meets me here.
Well, I think not in full capacity. No. There's not in full capacity. Actually, I could communicate without words with certain people. More body language. And that's how I did most of my communication, was just body language. not so good body language too, negative body language sometimes. But also positive body language, people knew. And I think that's what helps with studying with sensei is receptivity and of body language. Sensei teaches, and not all the time. Sensei teaches, and nonverbal communication is I think maybe that's what I ended up studying without even knowing it for such a long time. Yeah, and then joining the army, of course, as a enlisted soldier, I wasn't really hired, right? Or I really didn't join the army to share an opinion as an enlisted soldier. So I didn't need to talk much. I just needed to fix equipment for the military.
And then I think I do understand that you had some interest in Tibetan Buddhism. Is that correct, or?
Oh yeah, I find that it's very, very powerful and very compelling to maybe certain personalities. I'm in Karma Kaju, so whisper ear school. So you meet your teacher, they give you a lot of instructions, and then you don't see your teacher for 3 years. This is traditional. That's traditional Karma Kaju. Intense instruction, you don't see your teacher. Your job is to go practice. So very strong internal locus of control individuals, perhaps. Very driven to remove the dust in the eye.
You don't mind, Roy, you don't mind me asking about this, do you?
You can ask anything.
Oh, cool.
You can ask about the carpet. I would love to talk about.
Another time. But Karma Kagyu, I find I've been just reading up about a little bit through my life about a little bit about everything, and the Karma Kagyu I found fascinating with its history and lineage and practices and its living tradition today. I found it really, really beautiful and something that I could maybe take on board, but the whole I wasn't ready to take on the whole cultural thing at the time. And then it led on when I found my teacher, who was not secretary. He wasn't part of any school of thought.
Oh, yeah.
So he's kind of freestanding. So that.
Oh, great.
Yeah, that was good. It was fantastic. But so I know that this is for me to have a spiritual teacher or mentor is extremely beneficial and is a beautiful relationship. And once again, what I love is the relationships that comes out of this interest in, for lack of a better word, I like to express it as learning about the truth and what truth means in the deepest, most sense of the word. And of course, then if we are speaking about spirit and we're speaking about what all the religions are speaking about, we are speaking about what the Buddha did speak about, and etc. But if I may pry a bit then about how did you come to find your teacher? If this is something that, for me, the developmental path as we are going through our life, that if there is a spark of interest, is what takes us onwards to, if we find a teacher, and onwards. So how did it, I don't mean to jump from your childhood like this, but so do fill in, if I cannot jump, do fill in the gaps, if you may.
Okay. That's a good question, because like I talked about before, there was always a predilection, a predisposition toward spiritual practices and philosophy and academics. Although I really was, I don't want to use the word forced, but I was forced out of academics through the experiences in childhood. It probably is a good thing in the long run. However, what I'd like to say on this subject is that so Tibetan Buddhism, let's see, how did I come into that? Well, in the Army, I mentioned sutta studies. So I was reading suttas 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day.
Now you're talking about Buddhist suttas.
Yes. Pali Canon. Yeah.
So we're talking about traditional Buddhist scripture.
Yeah. I was studying that stuff and trying to meditate constantly. And then there's many suttas where it's like, if you can't find a teacher, if you can't find, somebody to learn from and be a guide, you take refuge on your own. This is what I find really unique about even Islam, right? Is I know this is going to sound heretical, but you don't need a teacher. The life is the teacher. This is the teacher, right? And if you really take refuge and search for refuge, this is a good foundation for practice, right? So there's many Buddhist sutras on this. You take refuge on your own if you cannot find somebody to take refuge from. So that's what I did in the Army. Long story short, living in the DC dojo, there were a few members there, Greg Mock and a few others, and they had come. Mary Akers is the other one. I was trying to remember her name. She's a beautiful woman, and they were like, "Oh, we're at a meeting with Shamar Rinpoche. He's the Red Hat Lama of Carmel, Kaju. And there's the Black Hat, Red Hat. They're two heads of the school. They find each other in rebirth scenarios. So he's teaching this weekend. Would you like to come? I think you would like it." Okay. Now, what's interesting about my experience so far is if I'm excited by something, I'm not interested in it. But if I'm like, oh, that's interesting, I'll go do it. So I went, and it was like the expression in business is drinking from a fire hose. Oh my gosh. The moment I walked in the door, Rinpoche's there, there's an attendant, and he's talking about something as simple as like tea. And I'm standing there, and I was like, it's like a fire hose of just awesomeness. Sensei will describe this as, awesome. And Rinpoche was unique because he was so progressive in Tibetan Buddhism. Very progressive. So progressive. He's like, nobody needs the cultural stuff. You're very smart Westerners. You all are very intelligent. I can teach you the core essentials, and this is what you need to study. And he did that with everybody there. Everybody. And, it was a very nondescript location. Many people wouldn't know. It looked like it's just a normal house on a big property, very huge in Potomac, Maryland. Bodhi Path Buddhist Centers is the name of the organization, but it's very innovative in that it tries to get to the raw function of what's being talked about, the function, and going past the style, which is funny because here's Saotome Sensei going, Aikido, no style. And then Rinpoche is going, no culture. Dharma has no culture. And, Saotome Sensei, Rinpoche, it was perfect. It still is perfect. Suchness, no style. Long answer.
No, it's brilliant. No, it must be. So really, so that was like you were hooked, and I was already hooked since I was like, the universe had me since I opened my mouth and went, wah. That's that's
The universe has me hooked, like attachment, right?
good. No, that's fantastic. So that's just a living relationship still today for you?
Not really. Maybe. That's a difficult answer. You know, physical body of Rinpoche, it passed away. Right?
Okay.
So, but I think the relationship is still very strong. Even gonna be like that with Sensei. We've actually talked about that.
Mm.
I think the relationship. Maybe the next lifetime we'll all open a restaurant together. I don't know. That's what Sensei says. Maybe we should open a restaurant. People be like, "Oh, he's talking about this lifetime." Ah, whatever.
Mm.
Bullshit. Oh.
Oh.
Very condensed, right? It's pretty funny.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think we're setting the stage, setting the scene. I mean, you have mentioned to me about you mentioned to me, I don't know if you want to speak about it. You mentioned to me an experience that was profound for you a few years back. And then you have also mentioned a project or kind of a mission that because that Sao Tome Sensei you mentioned, but also O Sensei. O Sensei speaks a lot about the mission and once I don't know how you would put it in English, your duty or your mission or your vocation, as it were. Would you like to say something about that?
Yeah. Meditation, I think, meditative practices and misogi, I used to practice quite a bit, quite a lot. In the DC dojo, after all the lights went out, it was either Suburi or it didn't matter, Shiko, any solo practice. However, after that, I used to go sit on the veranda as long as I could, you know, till you pass out practically. Meditate. And you're like, I'm going to sit here, you know, until, you know, liberation. However, it's funny because it's almost like a water jet, full power water jet, right? And yeah, you know, the power supply burns out and it can't push the water through, and you know the steel doesn't get cut because you know the power supply short circuited. Maybe the power went out. Maybe the power station didn't have enough power. But the intent was there. The intent, the wish, the desire to do that. And that keeps happening even today. You know, sit. Sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning till the birds came out. And then distracted by the birds, I'd get tired and then fall asleep. But I think it's important to share that because I could talk about this wonderful, beautiful experience, which has been surpassed since. There has been even greater one. However, I think it's misleading to talk about the results without understanding the cause, right? And the cause is a deep discomfort with life. There's a deep discomfort with life, like something is something's to use the word painful in life. But and without that recognition, and this is where you can even look in Tibetan Buddhist texts, it's the first step, right? Is to recognize that something is off. Something is off. Why go march through the desert, you know, thousands of miles on your own if you're happy and sedate and everything's okay, right? So about 5-6 years ago, I remember the environment. I remember the time. There was a very big epiphany, very big. And it's almost as if the entire universe like unfolded. And it was almost like a tour. However, it's like I walked through the other side of one reality, of one possible collection or set of possibilities and probabilities for the universe. Walked out of that entire set and into the next one. And like Carl Sagan says, you know, I can't share that with anybody. I can't give you that. I cannot. And I know why. I really know why. It completely makes sense why. And somehow I emerged out through a tiny door, literally inverted into a new set of probabilities for the universe. And it was excruciating. It took years and years, you know, like Mary Oliver says, you know, if only. She has a great poem where there's this line, you know, if only. And a good reader of that poem stopped at this line, the journey, and he stops the poem dead, and he goes, you know, for some that's a 30-year, 40-year only. So for this little body, that took decades to work on that. And then, yeah, on the other side, I just literally stood up and walked right through. Now that walk, that was excruciatingly painful. But at the same time, it almost was like it had to happen. It had to happen.
Mm.
And all that time studying and meditating, and the intent, the strong intent, is like power. It's almost like power, volition, which is the problem, but it takes time to realize that. Yeah, things changed ever since that day. And there was a line that there was a line that was composed on exiting that door. And I quickly rushed to the desk to write it down because it was dissolving very quickly. And I wrote it down, and I kept it on the desk for several years to reflect on that moment. And ever since then, it's almost as if Misogi practices, the function of Misogi, not the culture, the function of Misogi, what it actually is touching meditative practices. And it's almost as if like the Misogi is radiating out of meditative practice now. And it's even in the voice, like I'm practicing it right now. And it's a beautiful phenomena. Like it's pretty fascinating, actually. It sounds hokey pokey baloney until you meet really senior martial artists and around the world, and you meet them, and you're like, something is different, something, and it's mutual. Remember Basho? You know, do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the wise, seek what they sought. I think if that's truly realized when meeting other masters, there's a recognition, and it's not you, it's not them, it's not we. It's a recognition of, you could say, all of this, I guess. It sounds silly, doesn't it?
All of what?
All of this.
Yeah.
Whatever.
No, it's a beautiful way of describing it. That's lovely. I just what you first said, that is born out of this deep, unsatisfied place. That when you said that, it recalled back to what you said about, you know, when we were young, as kids, as children. Could you did you recognize that unsatisfactoriness way back then as a like a core thing?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Yeah. And I think that it was also a genesis for a great capacity to love. My mother says that was there since I was born. I always had a big care about the world. She used to say, when you were little, if the television was on the news, you'd get upset at the state of the world. You'd get really upset, and you wanted to fix it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What a crazy life. I don't remember that. I think she's exaggerating, but
no. I remember coming home from Aikido one day, and I was young, 10, 11. And the Aikido was in town, so I took the bus and subway home. But what I saw of just general relationship and enactment of people just on the street, on the buses and on the tube, I came home and I came in angrily shouting my mom, why are they like this? Why are they like this? Why are they? What's wrong with them? And I was like, oh. And I remember it vividly. And she just smiled at me.
And then it takes decades to realize that they're all doing the same thing. You're like, what's wrong with them? What's wrong with these people? And it's the hand gestures and the upsetness that's the problem.
Well, it's interesting though, because in one way you're speaking about the mystery that for me, I don't see it as I like to speak about it because I think actually people, I like to speak about it because I actually do believe that more people than not actually can refine their own thoughts and deepest outlook to life if they just look back on their life. And there's a spark in many people that has, because in one way it is who we are and it's so close to our heart, so we kind of miss it. We don't pay attention to it, even though it's right there the whole time growing up. And you just need to point a little bit, look, and they go, oh yeah, yes. And it's so beautiful because I love to bring, because for me the beginning is what we are today. This is what leads up to who you are today, and it's a mystery, but at the same time it's this incredible beautiful story that you tell, and that, like you said, the other people have told before you. So you can trust the world, you can trust life, but there are so many people out there that has already walked the same path that we are walking on, that many people are walking on, albeit differently from each other, but they are at different stages. They're at different stages, and you got all these books in front of me here are all my books, that I collected over the years, and there's one story after another, saying it in a slightly different way, in a different expression, but these stories are just marvelous to speak about and share.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. It's like you can get lost in stories, right? Other view can get lost in stories. Self view can get lost in stories, which leads to flow state, where suddenly the self is diminished, and now there's an opportunity to see the world without a sense of self, which is flow state, which is the maximum ability to solve problems is in flow state, actually.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, it all comes together like a big puzzle, like all the pieces just They fall together appropriately. Now, at the same time, you know, a deep sense of appreciation for the opportunity that we had to read, a safe home to read, an ability to acquire such books and text, an ability to access them when I was young. Not everybody had that. You know, not everybody has the capacity to have books full of bookshelves full of books. You know, not everybody has that. So I think this is the however comma, however comma, not everybody has the environment that's safe enough to do the deep spiritual work. And I think that's part, you talked about mission, and I think that is part of the mission, is to help make a world, I don't want to say make a world. I think the making is causing a lot of problems. I think how to reorder safely and gently for the benefit of everybody, and not just humans. But how to make this space, how to make safe places, you know, for people to have opportunities of reflection and refinement in their own lives, so that their home life with their children and their family is as good as their work life. I see a lot of businesses, especially in tech, you know, beautiful, beautiful environments, very functional environments in offices. However, maybe at the home life, not so good. So I think part of the Aikido mission, and this is where leadership training comes into play. There's a great book by Lencioni, you know, on dysfunctional teams. And one of the things is fear of conflict. You know, of course, the base is in trust, right? Base is trust. Distrust, not so good. But the next step is fear of conflict. Now, I'm not talking about conflict as in competition. I'm not talking about, but I think that, you know, regarding the mission, like, okay, all right, to use a crude expression, all right, a leadership practice. You want to make the world a better place? Okay. What are you doing to make the world a better place? You really ask yourself that. What are you really doing to make the world a better place? You know, can you look in the mirror and go, okay, I did it. I'm doing it. You know, can you really say that? Of course not sometimes. You know, sometimes no. Sometimes yes. And then later, you know, is the world becoming a better place? You know, take the self out. Is it becoming better? Around the practice, is it becoming better? Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you show people how to do that? Go to an Aikido dojo. Anyway, it's funny.
Well, the physical practice of Aikido and the mental and energetic. I mean, I'm finding lockdown actually quite beneficial for my development in Aikido. And so I've been, the last year, 1 year now, I've been doing solo exercises here and teaching from here every day. So I've been finding a different way of it. And luckily enough, I met a good teacher in Dan Harden just a few years ago, who's giving me the basics of how to go about it, which is giving my Aikido a whole new breath of life. And I'm loving it in that sense. So it has this quality of rejuvenation and physical and mental well-being of just practicing, which is what my Japanese teacher told me in Sweden. I had Tomita Sensei, who came from Japan to Sweden, and he said, you don't need to ask me, just practice, practice, practice. And and that's very much like Osen said, you know, the misogi is the practice. The practice, your Aikido is your misogi. But that is, for me, that is kind of, well, that is what we do. We are lucky to have that, and other people have other things. And I can't say Aikido is better or worse or something like that. Whatever people have at their heart. And but what I always try to, you know, that I try to address the Aikido community about the spiritual understanding of Osensei, or simply, how far have you taken your own spiritual understanding? How far, how deep have you gone? How deeply have you looked? In order for Aikido people to have some grasp of what it entails.
Yeah. I was always watching some of the interviews of Miles Kessler has been doing with some of these others on Shuhari. It's very interesting, and I think it butts up against not competition, but I think it buttresses up against really well what you just shared. And it is very interesting because you can see this growth, like plant growth, you know, like a tree, and the tree has blossoms and flowers on this tree, and you can see growth, and it's pretty fascinating. And then you can see the bees pollinating the flowers and marketing, and then you can see the the flower petals fall, and you can see the fruit, you know, that starts to develop, and then inside that fruit is a seed, and the pith of the fruit provides the push, the initial nutrients and the environment for that seed to germinate, you know. Also for protection when it hits the ground and then the sun hits it, and you know, it just keeps going. I mean, samsara just keeps going. Like it's limitless.
What I liked what you said though, and what I'm trying to advocate is what you strongly stated by your intention. It's this intention that was so strong with you, whether, and the beautiful thing is, like you said, whether you sat successfully or if it was difficult or not, it didn't really matter, because the important thing was the intention. And and the intention coming, and not an intention that you intellectually have thought through, but coming from an existential dissatisfaction that is like with you since years and years and years. And I'm not speaking about you as such, I'm speaking about generally.
Yeah.
But, and then
it does seem like that,
because I always like to try to point back to, well, I mean, you can be good at Aikido, you can be good at anything, you can train hard, you can train and become very proficient. But when we step into what we would call a spiritual realm, it becomes very specific to being, to who we are. And that is for me, it never ends fascinating me. It's endless, and it's continuous, and it's continuous revelatory, and the engagement I find, the engagement that I'm looking for, the relationship, the communication, and the meeting is that meeting where we meet in the awakening of who we are in relationship. And then whether you do Aikido or not matters less. I mean, Aikido is wonderful, but this dialogue, this meeting, and this understanding of this meeting takes precedence every single time. And it all comes down to relationship. How do we relate?
Yeah, and if if there's a willingness, I think, if there is a willingness driven by what was earlier talked about, that seems shared and mutual, of this intention, this strong intention, driven by observation, right? That strong intention is driven by observation, right? No observation, then no intention, that something's off, blind. But a blind person can read a book, don't, so Sensei says. That's for a different discussion. But I think that if there is a willingness, if there's a mutual willingness in that drive, in that intention, leading to dialogue like this, I think if there's a very strong willingness together, then, and I know exactly where that inflection comes from. It's a set of teachers that I've had over the years. If there's that strong intention between all the people in a certain community, even if it's just two people, then there's an opportunity for kairos. Then there's an opportunity to mutually step under the blade together.
Yeah.
Then that opportunity is where real practice comes.
Yeah.
So far on this dialogue, we haven't been in that space. Not yet. But when we first met, we went straight there. And I think that the order of operations was one life, one meeting, right? Ichiko Ichie.
Yes.
The first time we met, we went straight to that space. And now we know that's where the shedding, that's where realization happens. This place. Or can we both stand on the bridge together? Can everybody in the Aikido practice hall or the symphony, can they all stand under the blade together? This is a good conductor. Everybody stands under the blade together, and they're not attacking each other. It's going to feel like you can't breathe or you have no room. It's going to feel like the entire universe is there.
Yes.
But I don't think that's for everybody. I don't think that's necessary for everybody. However, it is very purifying. It's very purifying.
Yes. No, as it's beautiful and purifying, but one can never predict, or why I like to speak about it on all occasions is that one can never foresee when it's plausible and when it's not. So you can propose it, you can advocate it, you can train it, you can have it as a practice. And like you said before, it's all about that willingness. And that willingness that you spoke about became very clear now when I look at you, when you speak about the teacher relationship to sensei. Because in the teacher-student relationship, that is almost a given, that the student are willing to listen, to observe, to pay attention, and to learn. Because open up is to learn and to be vulnerable, because we trust the teacher, we put our trust in our teacher. But imagine that when we do that with each other, as not in a senpai kohai manner, but we as human beings can do that together. And then we do it without fear of, without the kind of how do you call it, without implying it has to be in a certain way.
Yeah, it's not fixed. It's unfixed.
Yeah,
it's continuously creative. Yeah, unfixed.
And that's the fun part of the exploration, because you can take it further, and you just move the meeting and dialogue further and further.
Yeah, I think that these are pretty amazing practices. no matter what it is, you know. I already written quite a bit about religion and the etymology of religion. What is the function of religion? What is it actually? What is religion actually? Not the forms of religion, but what is it to reread? You know, and it makes sense. It is a lot like sensing, like a blind person, you know, sensing. You know, Sensei talks about that quite frequently. And yeah, it's a zanshin, you know, the leaf that lingers on the branch, you know, through winter. Is, you know, that lingering mind is like rereading. And I feel strongly, I feel that the most beneficial thing that any being can do is to literally meditate with another human being. Practice with another human being. The coffee machine thinks otherwise. But it wants to clean itself. See, it's doing its musogi. But I really think, you know, whether that's moving meditation through something like Aikido, or that's prayer together, like in religious practices, no matter what, I think the most valuable thing to do with others is to do that purification practice.
Yeah.
And also, it will take great courage, because I feel that the most valuable thing that a human being can do when there's conflict is do those same practices right in front of the opposition. And it will take a tremendous amount of courage to do that. Tremendous. Even in the face of a CEO, even in the face of boards and investors. And there will be flack, and it will fall off just like a water off a duck's back, the analogy goes, and it will go by. And it will lead to a betterness and a wish to be better on the other side. It will. Yeah, you might get your head cut off in the process. Well, that's okay. No problem.
What are you referring to when you about this? So you're referring to corporate business? I don't know what you're referring to.
So like the 10 years after leaving the dojo was a great whirlwind of oh my gosh, I met some amazing people from different companies around the world, different personalities, very strong personalities. Wow, very strong. And there was always this question in the Aikido dojo, and I remember his name's Ken Butts. He's an archivist for National Geographic, and very beautiful man. And he after the classes, sometimes it would just be me and him in the office. And one of the things that he said, and he knew exactly what to say. He was one of, I would say, a mentor. There's many. Oh my gosh, the list is endless. But he goes, you know, you ever wonder how to leave that switch on? And I'm like, that's pretty cool. Ken is awesome. And the switch is, you know, sometimes it's like, and even if it's for the briefest moment, it's like, wow, that was amazing. You know, it's like, how do you do that all the time? And that's the big question. He's like, how do you be amazing all the time? Well, now it's simple. You know, who are you to say this? But now it's simple. And I'll tell you straight in the camera lens, it's simple. Get out of the way. Just get self out of the way. That's what leaves the light switch on. But habits, perception is going to keep throwing self out. I, me, we, they, you, other. And all that energy going into producing that, it requires metabolism, is just going to use that energy up for for conceit. And just get rid of the conceit. Get the conceit out of the way. And not even I am conceited. There's just conceit. It's not me. It's just conceit. It's okay. Let it go. It's not me letting it go. It's just letting go. Like, you have to let it go, or it should be joyous. To who? Should be? It is joy. Anyway, that's where the level, I think, it's not a level, it's a valence. I think that the one thing about Aikido practice that's the most profound for me, which is the public perception of me, is Masagato Agato Kato Hayabi. You know, true victory is underlined, neon lights, is like, you know, supernova right there, and that is, you know, is true victory. It really, really is. Guaranteed, batteries not included. Hint, hint. No purchase necessary. It is, absolutely. Now, the quick victory part, you know, true victory is self-victory. Quick victory. The quick victory part, that's the Vajra. That's Vajrayana. That's, you know, Aikido practice is quick victory practice. So I have to say, you can do this your whole life. I'm going to put that in air quotes. You could do this your whole life, and there's still so much to learn. Absolutely, that's true. I didn't join Aikido to sign up for a lifelong practice that is undone and doesn't ever come to completion until I die. I didn't sign up for that. I didn't sign up for that at all. I signed up for enlightenment. Go straight at it. If O Sensei is saying this came from heaven, you know, and it's a gift of Kami, it's a gift of heaven. It really is. I believe it. I really do. And I know that Sensei does too, because we've written about it together. Mm. So, you know, and now there is a strong confidence. There's a very strong confidence, and also flexibility, you know, the bamboo is very confident, also flexible. But yeah, this practice is about Masagato Agato Katarabi. It really is. It really, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Mic drop, done, right? Mm. Then what do you practice after that?
No, that's continuous practice. That's life.
It's life.
That's continuous practice, because you always meet. There's always a new meeting.
Yeah, I think that what happens after that depends on the impetus that was in parallel to there's something wrong, or there is pain. You know, not too much pain to overwhelm, not too little pain where you're like, oh, I'm just enjoying life in luxury, right? But I think on the flip side of that, a sincere wish to help other people, so that on the backside of the epiphany, that the practice after that, post-enlightenment, is helping others. That is the practice, help others.
Yes, that's the communication.
Yeah. Help other people.
Yeah. But that helping other is also, it is to actualize, to realize the meeting. It's to realize the meeting, and whatever we turn, whatever situation we turn, there's a meeting. We're gonna meet something, someone, and it's gonna be a relationship in every meeting. There's gonna be that meeting, and there we go. Because it's for us to come to awake to, like you said before, sit together, practice together, misogi together, or just come together and meet as in the truth of who we are.
You know, it's funny, Bjorn, I just realized something. I think everybody already knows this. Intuitively, instinctually. You think about think about coronavirus. You know, people know, I wish I could see people. That's the thing I miss the most, is seeing people. You know, I think humans already know this, that's important to spend time together.
True.
You know,
true.
They do it, they go to, you know, humans go to restaurants. They love going to restaurants. You know, they eat with other people in the restaurant. They could eat this food at home. Yeah, you have to cook it and you're not an expert. Yeah, whatever. But I think people already know. They already know, but self is in the way.
Exactly. But that's the beautiful twilight that we play with, because we're already together, we're already there, and there's a little bit confusion, and there's a little bit confusion, and there's a little bit confusion, but it's like, that's fine as long as the willingness is there. As long as the willingness is there, then it's like, okay, that's fine. There's a little bit of confusion, but hey, then what better time we have than to sort that out? Then we sort it out. Then we go, what do you mean? What do you mean? Wait, okay. And then we sort of like, we just we shift through it. Shift through samsara. And it's just wonderful.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because maybe the way we first met was really influenced by my experience in the army and then growing up, because what does the military do when the recruits first join, right? They bring you through the most intense experience in your life up until that point, and it's like 11 on the dial. You know, when you first get off the bus or however you get to basic training. Actually, this is not even basic training yet, right? It's like a gauntlet, right? It's like this big gauntlet. But in psychology or research in there's this thing called Shaky Bridge. It's the Shaky Bridge. And what that is they did an experiment. And yeah, I should cite my sources better. This is why I'm in my university, but you can look it up. It's a very interesting study where they had a bridge and they put somebody on the bridge, a male, and then they had women cross the bridge. And for the control group, they wouldn't shake the bridge. And for the non-control group, they would find environments, you know, the time when there was going to be more wind to shake the bridge. And what they found was, when the bridge was shaking, when two people met for the first time, they would continue a relationship more often than if the bridge wasn't shaking. Mm. And what's fascinating about that study is it's like, it totally makes sense. Like when I first met Sensei, he was doing a Yadansha seminar in the DC dojo. And it was like, oh, I don't know, it's a Yadansha weekend, but you can come and watch. And that was my first exposure to Sensei, was Yadansha seminar, throwing Dan Mach, you know, all the way across the mat. And I think about all the other people in my life when I first met them that have the most impact, was when I first met them, they also gave me the most impact of either the personality at play or the environment. It's always been like maximum impact when I first met them. Also safe, you know, and I think that, and I just realized that the Army does that with recruits, you know. Then it is a basis to establish a spirit de corps, you know, and esprit de corps. But I think that part is important in Budo, in martial arts, in stopping, halting, you know, the spear practice. Halts was a halting spear way, right? You know, the path is not the path. You know, I think that the skill that is the quick, right? There's Maskato Gatsu, you know, Katsuhayabi. The quick side of that equation, or that maxim, the quick side is in the skill of joining the things in the environment to give that impact. You know?
Yeah.
Sensei will go, intensity, intense, intense. Mama, sleepyhead. I like sleeping though, you know, because it's pleasurable. That's why.
True.
So, anyway, I'm glad we met.
Yeah, me too. No, I love to call this intensity. I love to call it immediacy.
Yeah, immediacy is a good word too. I've noticed that's been traveling the business community a little bit is immediate. This concept of immediate.
Yes, and I find that you know that of course that works perfectly well in Aikido practice. Works perfectly well when we walk in nature, when we see things, when we apprehend things, and it works perfectly when we meet each other. There's a abruptness that is masakatsu or akatsu, or there's an abruptness in the meeting that where you either want or, and that's what I love, because the only thing you need is this wanting, this desire for it, and that's all. You don't need to know anything but wanting it. Yeah, and then of course, and like you said about books before, of course there's so much to learn. There's so much more to learn, but hey, we got time, and there's so much to learn, but the abruptness and the immediacy and the directness is always there. The key is always there. Then we can start, we can pile on the study if we are, you know, if you are that minded. But
yeah, you know, this Aikido or any kind of practice. I would classify Aikido as a Vajrayana kind of practice. You know, it's a quick practice to learn principles and wisdom.
But a lifetime to become sensitive in it.
Nah, you don't need a lifetime. Save yourself the lifetime stuff. I think this is good marketing for business. Just do it. You know, it's like, but what is the?
No, that's fine. That's fine. But doing it, you kind of shave off the rough edges over time.
So here's the thing about roughness. Roughness is an aspect of life.
Yes, yes. Tell the person that's bleeding.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, be gentle. You know, it's like a plant. Be gentle. Some plants are not gentle. You know, a Venus flytrap is not gentle. It looks gentle. You know, play that fast is not gentle. You know, some things look gentle, but if you speed up time and watch it, you're like, nah, it's pretty rough.
Yes.
You know, so.
Yeah, but I think there's something to the polishing the mirror.
Yeah.
No, I do think there is, especially in Aikido, there is and that's beyond this immediacy. But the immediacy is actually highlighting it every time anyway, because there's one way you can do it where you can actually just become more and more and more sensitive. You become more sensitive in the engagement. So to the point where it becomes, because when I trained with Saito Sensei in Japan, and grabbing him was quite incredible, because I would, Iwama, we told to grab strongly and, with power and strength, and you grabbed him, and you were taken into this whirlwind, and then you were left out on the other side, and it felt so good. It was not, there was no hard corners, there was no upset, there was just a vortex, and then you were out, and you were out, and you went, ooh, do that again.
Yay.
The sensitivity is incredible, and just speaking for my practice has been, and I love that sensitivity, and with physical touch, but then also the sensitivity in the engagement, in that immediacy, and the sensitivity of in meeting the other, when everything goes, and it for me that's a, in one way, that's an ongoing practice that and learning. And you maybe sometimes you don't feel like it, maybe you're all over the place, and suddenly everything just have to come together with that, because you have that willingness, because you want to, and you have the time, because we have the time to do it.
There's space. There's the space and the opportunity. And now it's our mission to share that and to create that space for others to practice as well. I think the mission is to help create those safe places for other people.
And isn't that wonderful when you come into a dojo, and when you feel a good vibe in a dojo, it's because of all the practitioners in the dojo.
Yes, everybody's contributing. Everybody
they have created the dojo. So when a person walks into the dojo, it's like, oh, I like it here. It's because of all those people, creating this dojo atmosphere, and you feel like, yes, this is great. This is
it's community. Yeah, it's a community. Yeah, that's wonderful. It's not, in analytics, it's called attribution. And single touch attribution is basically saying the reason for these results are this one thing or this one person. This is a single touch attribution. But good analyst knows this is a baloney metric. There's multi-touch attribution. There's hands all over this project. There's vendors, there's research from scientists, from there's human understanding from thousands of years, there's heuristics. It's just very complicated. But community.
I know. It isn't that fascinating, because then when you look back and you see of all the influences that comes together to create this event, and how it shifts in an instant, it's mind-boggling. It's just so beautiful.
Kairos.
What is Kairos? I don't understand.
It's like timing. It's almost like how to share the it's like the right timing. It's right timing. It's very practical and martial skill. It's right timing. Right timing.
And isn't that?
I used to sit. What were you gonna say?
No, go ahead.
I remember one of the practices in the dojo was, when is sensei gonna stop and turn it over to people practicing? And he used to try to go, right now. Here he goes, and it got so good. It was amazing. Like, you knew exactly when sensei was done before, like 5 seconds before, because it's like a telephone call. Some people miss the landing, the gentle landing, like when you're on a phone call and the person's like, okay, so anyway, and they're trying to land, and then the other person just doesn't see it, and then it keeps going anyway.
Like.
So it's like trying to be sense. That's funny. Trying to sense the one who went before is landing, right?
Yes.
Trying to sense the landing, and over time it got really good. It got really good.
That's funny. That reminds me of Iwama with Saito Sensei, and he, it would be great if the Westerners, the good Uchideshi, could get that, but he demanded it of the Japanese deshi. They were under the gun. If they didn't read his mind before he wanted something, he lashed out.
Wow.
So, but no, he was a sweetheart. But so the good deshi, they took it upon themselves, and they read him like a book. He's like, turn around, there's this knife. Yes. But that was kind of funny, just that whole mentorship that involves that being with being
Yeah,
with.
it's definitely, you know, going shopping with Sensei was like that. You know, having the opportunity to shop with Sensei, especially grocery shopping, was like that. He used to, I'm not kidding. He used to gesture with his hands behind his back when something, like he would look at something and his other hand would be behind his back, and he would twitch his middle finger, like he would twitch it, and then be like, and then you experiment. You're like, okay, let me, you know, go grab the item and put it in the basket, and he'd go, oh, thank you, and and after a while, he would just make it more subtle, more subtle, more subtle, until it was like you just knew he wanted it. Like
Yeah.
you just knew that that was the thing, and then you'd make mistakes sometimes, but it's okay.
You put
But
in
it led to this.
did you put in what you wanted?
Like we used to go shopping with Sensei. There's another gentleman, Mike Rosario, that lived at the dojo too, and we would have fun. Like we were interested in manga too, and Japanese anime, and just martial arts things, and you know, it is really fun. Sometimes Sensei would call us out. This is foolish. What are you talking? What are you talking about? This is foolish. But that was really rare. Sensei is a wonderful individual. Really, really good teacher for the predisposition here. You know, if there's a capacity to really, that desire you were talking about, that intense, you know, desire, if there's that capacity, I think the students would learn a lot. They'll learn a lot. Now, again, one thing to keep in mind, especially for people I train with, is that I was in the military before Aikido. And, you know, in an enlisted capacity, you know, when you're working with officers, you know, saluting and trying to predict what is going to be needed, even for a unit to be deployable, you know, this is already there. It's like established. You know, yeah, there's foolishness and ignorance and, you know, and aloofness and whatnot. That's just part of the personality from growing up. You know, that's pretty well set by the time you're 4 or 5 years old. So that sensitive, I remember driving a general once in the Army. The first time I got an opportunity, well, it was foisted upon me. It really wasn't a volunteer thing, but it was like, hey, we need somebody for blah 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 this weekend, da da da, or next week. Can you be the driver? And you can't say no. You sort of got to do it. So I got an opportunity to drive the general around on the base and pick him up in the morning, and it was very interesting because I think that moment is where things clicked and solidified in terms of service. Is that moment, and then meeting Sensei and having that experience really was like, oh, okay. I've seen this before. This is not new. I know what he's gonna do. And funny story. I've written about it. I don't know if I should share this, but because I've written about it, I'm just repeating myself. I don't like to repeat myself. That's one thing. I don't like to repeat. I don't even like watching the same movie over and over, unless it's really good and has a lot of lessons. But
go on.
One of the first experiences with Sensei, it was an super intense experience, was I was watering the garden. It was like, I think it was the first couple months I was there, and he was in town, and I'm in the front garden, and the door opens, and I hear it behind me, and I'm watering. I hear it, and then I hear, psh, and I turn around, and he's going back inside, and he had a trash bag out on the deck, front veranda. It's like, okay, military brain. I know. So you go grab the trash bag and you go put it in the trash can. Go back to watering. Door opens. I turn. Sensei's there. He throws the trash bag out on the veranda. It's like, all right, go grab the trash bag and go throw it away. And then watering. Door opens again. This time, turn around. He stands there. He holds the trash bags out and he gently places it on the veranda. Gentle this time. So there's that thing about roughness. Gentle this time. It's about magnitude and direction. I don't think it's about form. It's the magnitude and direction. Is there improvement or is there, relapse? So he puts the trash bag down gently, makes eye contact this time. And then I just nod. And then he walks back inside. And I go to grab the trash bag and throw it away. But well, that was an interesting moment because of the change in behavior between both of us. The acknowledgement and the communication, nonverbal communication. And something Sensei, there's a Deshi taking care of Sensei right now, Jacob Cooper. And I'm glad that somebody else gets to have this experience with Sensei, because it changed my life tremendously. However, now that we've talked a while, that change has been going on for a very long time. So I think that it is nice to have these opportunities to be in a capacity of service for others while simultaneously being receptive to the wish to improve it continually. And something Sensei said once is that this is very natural. Living together, you, me, living together, very natural. And I think about my own life with Galen and Ian, who both live here as well. It's like, there's going to be little moments, which sometimes are big moments. Big moments are very rare. Loading the dishwasher is a good example with any family. I speak about that before, or, even sweeping leaves. But yeah, there's, finding natural living that is not tied up in conceit. Yeah, I think that's a very good thing.
Roy, that's beautiful. Thank you. I think that's a good note to come to an end. What do you think? Do you have something that you would like to say? Otherwise, I think it was a really nice drawing to end. I know we could speak forever, and I'd love to speak with you again. But I think this is a great.
Yeah, I think so too. How is Judith and everybody?
They are fine. They're fine. We can continue that talk on social media. But no, I think everyone is doing fine here.
Good. I really thank you very much for inviting me to speak. I've had this kind of opportunity a few times, and I find it very valuable to share. So thank you.
No, thank you, Roy. And it was lovely to get to know you more, and for sure. But for now, thank you, Roy, and I see you later.
Very much.
Cheers.
See you later.
Have a good day.